Welcome back everyone to this lecture on interactions between functions. Typically, a Python script or Python notebook contains several functions interacting with each other. We take the results of one function and often use that as input to another function. What we're going to do is we're going to create a few functions to attempt to mimic the carnival guessing game 3 Cup Monty. And in case you're not familiar with this, it's basically you start off with 3 cups and underneath one of them is hidden a red ball. And then what you're going to do is you shuffle these cups around, have the user guess where the red ball is, and then they're either right or wrong. So our very simple game won't actually show the cups or ball. Instead, we're going to mimic this with the effect of a Python list. So it's going to be a Python list with 2 empty strings and then one string that has just a capital O, which will be our ball. And our simple version will also not show the shuffling to the user, so the guess for the user will just be completely random. Our main focus here is to show you how multiple functions can end up interacting with each other and returning objects to each other. Okay, let's get started. All right, here we are in the Jupyter Notebook. To begin, I just want to show you how you can shuffle a list at random in Python. And Python actually comes in with a built-in random module, and we covered this module in more detail later on. But for now, I'll show you just the shuffle function that can come from the random module, and we'll show you how to import it. And we'll talk a lot more about imports later on in the course. But for this case, let's go ahead and make an example list. Let's say it has 7 items in it, and I want to randomly shuffle the list. Well, I can say from random import shuffle. And the shuffle function will actually shuffle a list in place, meaning it doesn't actually return anything. It just grabs that current list and then shuffles it. So we can say shuffle the example list, and then when you call example again, you'll notice that it's been shuffled. So we're going to be using this built-in shuffle from the random module inside of Python within one of our functions. So let's start by creating our simple game. First, I'm going to create kind of our own version of shuffle, which actually returns the example list. Notice shuffle example here doesn't actually return anything. For example, if I were to try to say result is equal to shuffle example and then call result later on, it's actually happening all in place within the example list, so nothing is returned, which means I can't actually do this. So what I need to do is create my own function for this. So say def shuffle, and we can't call it shuffle because that's the same name as the function space and we can't share that namespace. So we'll say def shuffle list, which is going to take in my list. It will shuffle my list, and then it will also return my list. So adding just a little bit of functionality on top of the built-in shuffle. Since the built-in shuffle won't return anything, it just does it in place, and I actually want to be able to return it and use it as a result here. So let's see if this works now. I'll say result is equal to shuffle list. Let's pass in our example. We check out our result, and it's shuffled. And each time I run this, you'll notice it kind of shuffles it in a different way. Perfect. So we have a function that can shuffle this list. So what is our actual game list going to look like? Well, as I noted previously, our game list is just going to be 3 strings, with one of them being essentially a capital O as our red ball, and the other 2 are empty strings. So what the user is going to try to guess is where is this hidden capital O. So eventually what we're going to be doing is calling shuffle list on my list, and then it will shuffle this around, and the O may or may not be in the same spot. Next, we need to create a function that can take in a player guess. So the player, after the list has been shuffled, is going to guess the location, and we won't display where the list is before we shuffle. So what I want to show you is a function called player guess. And this takes in no arguments. Instead, we start off with a placeholder of the user's guess. And the user can guess essentially one of 3 index positions. They can guess it's either index 0, index 1, or index 2. So we start off with an empty guess, and then we'll say guess is equal to input function, and we'll say pick a number 0, 1, or 2. Now, in order to make sure that the guess is actually correct, we could add in some extra code here. Basically, as we mentioned before, we can use a while loop to make sure that the input is correct. So I could say while the guess not in 0, 1, 2, colon, go ahead and keep asking for this input. And then once that's finalized, go ahead and return the integer version of guess. You may be wondering, why are these strings and why are you casting it as an integer at the end? Well, that's because input returns and always returns a string. So even if you type in the integer 0, 1, or 2, it's going to return it as the form of a string, which is why we're checking the string 0, 1, and 2, but I'm returning it as an integer since I will use it to directly index off this list. Let's go ahead and run this so you can see what it looks like. I call player guess, open close parentheses, run this. It says pick a number 0, 1, or 2. If I provide an incorrect value, because of that while loop, it'll keep asking me over and over again until I get either 0, 1, or 2. So if I pass in 1, that's perfect, and then I get the result 1, which I can save. So I could say my index is equal to player guess, run this again, and if I pass in 2 this time, you'll notice that my index is now 2. Perfect. So we just need one more function, which is to essentially combine this list that has been shuffled with the player's guess. So I just need to check that my guess was correct or not. So we'll say check guess, and this is where the functions begin to interact with each other, because I will pass in my shuffled list and I will pass in the user's guess. So that means I should have called player guess and my shuffle list function before calling this check guess function. And so what we're going to do at the end of this notebook is write a little script that essentially calls the functions in the correct order. So we'll say def check guess, and we'll say if my list at my guess index position is equal to a capital O, then I'll simply just print correct. Else, I will print wrong guess, and let's go ahead and tell the user where it actually was by printing out that list. Note, in this case, I don't actually care about returning anything because this will essentially be the last line in my little script. So I have my functions defined, and now it's time to set up a little bit of logic as a final script. So if you're dealing with this in a .py file, it's very common to have a bunch of function definitions at the top, and then at the bottom, you have the actual logic to be called here. So what I need to do is set up my initial list, then I need to shuffle that list, then have the user guess the location, and then I will check against the list with the user guess. So how do we do this? We'll start off with my list, which is an empty string, an O, and another empty string, so the O starts off in the middle. And then what I'm going to do is I will have a mixed up version of this list, and I will call equals shuffle list on my list. So that's step 2. And this is where I'm also going to grab the user guess. So I'll say guess is equal to the result of player guess, and then I'm going to check the guess. So we'll say check guess, and that will pass in the mixed up list along with the user guess. So this is really where the functions start interacting with each other, because I will shuffle and get a mixed list, and then I will get the player guess. And this third function takes the results of those two other functions. And this is what's going to allow you to write much more complex code. The fact that you can have separate functions doing separate parts and then interact with each other later on within another function. So you can see here that I'm actually able to write more complex code because I've been able to compartmentalize a lot of these functions and a lot of this complexity to just certain function calls. So this is really easy to read, and then if I ever have a question on what player guess is or what shuffle list is, I can review by going back up and checking my function definitions. So I can begin creating really complex code that is still actually quite readable. So let's run this and see how it works. So it says pick a number, 0, 1, or 2. Let me just input a wrong number to make sure it's still working. I hit 8, it asks me again. Looks like that's working. Let's just guess location, index position 0, see if I get lucky. I have 1 in 3 chance of getting it right. And it was a wrong guess. So notice here, I said 0, 0 is empty string, and it's currently lying at index 2, which also lets me know that the shuffle list is working because my initial list had the O at index position 1. All right, that's it. Go ahead and check out the lecture notebook in case you have any more questions on this. It's kind of set up in a step-by-step manner there, or you can post the Q&A forums if you have any questions. If you're trying to follow along but you're getting errors, make sure you try running our notebook first to make sure you didn't commit a simple typo. Thanks, and I'll see you at the next lecture.